wrestling life.
Hey everybody, it's The Wrestling Life. It's episode 246. It's September 17th, 2020. I'm Ethan.
Hello, Ethan. It is your girl, the legit boss, Sasha Banks.
And I'm Liam.
Liam, we have so much to discuss this week.
And as always, so many things we can't talk about right here on the first and only wrestling podcast.
That's right. Even more so than usual, this is just going to be a free-flowing discussion that occasionally touches on mature subjects. I don't know what our schedule for doing this podcast is going to be over the next month as G1 ruins my life. So we decided we should get this one in today. I guess you want to touch on G1 real quick. A block looks real good. B block looks real bad.
Yeah, I mean, all things considered, I guess that's we're getting some foreigners in there, which I didn't know if that was going to be able to happen this year, so that's exciting.
Yeah, they got Jay White in, they got Will Ospreay in, Jeff Cobb, the 300-pound guy that can do a standing moonsault and all kinds of every suplex you could possibly imagine, and yet is the most boring wrestler to me.
Yeah, imagine being a guy that talented, and you're like, yeah, he's about a 6 out of 10.
It's true. Remember when he did a one-off for AEW?
Yeah, he sure did, and then just kind of went on living his life.
Yeah, it's a weird dude. Weird dude. Remember when, of all people, Michael Elgin tried to shame him for not washing his gear?
Yes, I do remember that. I think much as I tried to put everything involving Michael Elgin out of my brain forever, unfortunately, yes, I do remember during one of Michael Elgin's many scandals in wrestling over the past few years, that it came out that he was complaining to someone in DMs that got leaked that Jeff Cobb was mean and didn't like to hang out with him outside of the ring, and also his gear smelled bad. Yes.
Remember when Michael Elgin, who had not played baseball since junior college, said he was going to quit Ring of Honor and go play professional baseball?
Sure do. He worked himself into a shoot, and they just all right, you're actually fired.
Yeah, he's a special guy. He's real dumb. Speaking of real dumb, Will Ospreay's in the G1.
Yeah, he sure is. That's a weird one because obviously there seems to be some evidence that he's not a good person, but nothing he did was illegal. So I'm not advocating that the man should never work again, but it's going to be a little weird. Going to be a little weird just have him kind of back in the fold, and it's weird because obviously no one doubts him as a tremendous performer in wrestling, but feels like it's getting a little harder to separate art from artists with that guy.
Well, speaking of Michael Elgin and his many scandals, New Japan has shown that as long as a guy's under contract to them, whatever they have going on, they're going to use them as long as they're under contract to them. They've used Sabre all summer,
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was ever, said officially or about Sabre with the speaking out stuff, but he was suspiciously quiet when virtually everyone in the UK wrestling scene was caught up in all that. And yeah, so looking at G1, so Naito's double champ again. I don't know if they're going to split those titles again or not. Doesn't seem like they have a real strong desire to. Seems like maybe the evil experiment is over. I don't know. He's going to be an upper mid guy, but I don't know that he's going to be a perennial world champion in New Japan. So B block, he got Sonata, Naito, Yano, Juice, Tanahashi, Sabre, Goto, Yoshihashi, Kenta, and Evil. Naito's the champ, and of those other 9 guys, none of them really jumps out to me as a guy who has a chance of headlining the biggest show of the year. Maybe Tanahashi, but also they've been telling the story basically all summer that Tanahashi's washed up. So I don't know.
Like every 6 months to a year, we decide that this is Tanahashi's sunset and he's done,
Yeah.
and then 70,000 people pay to see him, and then we're like, oh wait, no, we still need him. Yeah, I mean, I guess Tanahashi. I mean, that, yes, based on who is in that block, I would go that person will win the block to set up Naito's like fall challenger, and then they will lose to someone in the A block to set up the actual Tokyo Dome main event.
Right. Yeah. Usually, there's only one more title defense after G1 for the champion. But this year is so weird that who knows? They could do, I don't know, they could do 2 or 3 more. I don't know. I don't have a feel. I don't have a feel for what they're doing, you know?
Yeah, it definitely seems, this is definitely like, and obviously some of it is, you know, the world, but this definitely is like the most, at least since I've been paying attention to New Japan, the most like, we're just trying some stuff that I've ever seen them. Like, we're just throwing some stuff out there, seeing what works, putting on our weird show in California with no fans.
Yeah, yep. A block, you got Okada, Shingo Takagi, Tomohiro Ishii, Jeff Cobb, Will Ospreay, Kota Ibushi, Jay White, Minoru Suzuki's back in G1 this year, Taichi, and Yujiro Takahashi. Of those guys, Jay White, always a contender.
Mm-hmm.
Kota Ibushi won last year, probably not again this year. Taichi, they've been doing stuff with. Like, I wouldn't do it, but I wouldn't be shocked. And Okada's always a threat. Any feeling one way or the other which way they'll go there?
Well, my first thought was that I wish a different Takahashi was in the G1. But, no, I kid. Sort of.
Hiromu might, if they put Hiromu in the G1 though, he might actually die.
That's a fair and, you know, accurate prediction. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's Jay White is like, they haven't done him and Naito in like a big world title match yet, and he's already, you know, Naito's already beaten Kenta and Evil now, so like that's like the Bullet Club's final boss. But I just like, and God knows how many fans they're gonna have, and maybe it won't be a traditional Wrestle Kingdom, and I mean, I'm assuming it won't be, but like it would be, I don't know, Naito versus Jay White does not seem like a headliner match to me. I could see them going back to Okada and Naito one more time, but yeah, those were kind of the names that jumped out at me. It doesn't seem to me like there's like an obvious winner, like there has been like the year Omega won, or last year when Ibushi won. It doesn't seem like there's like this obvious pick of where they're going.
Kota Ibushi's a weird one too, in that, you know, he looks like he's 27 years old, but he's like 39 or whatever. It has a lot of wear and tear on him, and you would think somebody that good is going to be IWGP champion before his career's over, and yet, you know, we're on the clock here, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I could see them going back to it, but like I said, I don't have a strong sense that it's like, that's the obvious play here. Like, they could go back to it. God knows they love Naito and Ibushi. But I guess we've had a few months off from that this year. But
yeah,
I mean, that's always a match they threaten to go back to. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess Ibushi or Okada would be the two there. But yes, and maybe, I don't know, maybe Jay White is a different title defense before the end of the year, or maybe he's like the one who attacks Naito at New Year's Dash. I don't know.
Yeah, they could do something like that. All right, moving on. WWE. Boy, Monday Night Raw was a program this week. The Clash of Champions is coming up.
It was in your face, we should mention. In your face Raw.
Certainly was. You know, all things considered, by WWE 2020 standards, it did okay going up against the first week of NFL football, which was kind of a shock.
Yeah, I guess every year for like the last, I don't know, 8 or 9, we're like, is this the bottom?
Right.
Is it, or has the viewership dropped to the point where football doesn't really threaten them that much anymore? And the answer appears to be, yeah, maybe. I mean, it wasn't like the strongest games, so maybe if it was, if we have like a Chiefs and Patriots game or something, I haven't actually looked at the Monday night schedule this year, but if we have like a really strong game, maybe that'll hurt it. But yeah, if it's just your average, your average whatever. I mean, it was Denver and Tennessee and Pittsburgh and the Giants. Neither of those were like giant games, so maybe we wait and see a couple more weeks until there's a big Monday night game. But yeah, we may have finally hit the bottom of this viewership has bottomed out to the point where football doesn't have the big effect on it used to.
Yeah. Speaking of trying some stuff, Roman Reigns is defending against Jey Uso. It's Jey Uso, right? Not Jimmy Uso?
Yes. Jey Uso. He's the skinnier of the two Usos. That's how I tell them apart.
I can't tell them apart. It's been a decade.
Also, facially, they look different because they're not actually identical twins.
Huh. What do you know about that?
Yes. But yeah, anyway, yes, it is Jey Uso. I mean, that's a Clash of Champions. I mean, I mean this in the WCW sense. That's a Clash of Champions match. Like,
exactly.
That's Robert Gibson wrestling for the world title on Wrestling Flair on a Clash of Champions show. I guess it's interesting. There's some intrigue. It's a new person. I'm trying to be nice.
Sure.
It's an interesting idea. I do have a thought. I don't remember if I've tweeted this out or not. But do you think they're so divorced from remembering like what was good and what was bad that they would do a finger poke of doom?
I mean, I put absolutely nothing past these people, creatively speaking. Mm-hmm. But no, I think they'll do a real match. Okay. I mean, I don't think like a Roman I think Roman and Paul is an act. I don't think you need to throw anybody else in there, but I don't know.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I don't know how long other Jimmy Uso is going to be out, but I was just thinking, I was like, well, that's like the other thing everyone wanted 4 years ago was for Roman and the Usos to be like a trio. So maybe Bruce will give us that too now.
It's not a terrible idea. I mean, I don't hate the idea. I hate the idea of getting to it via a finger poke of doom, but mm-hmm. I don't hate the idea necessarily of them as a trio. I would like to see the Paul and Roman act get some legs under it before they start adding to it.
I think that's fair. I think it's an interesting act. They've obviously played on the fact that Paul once managed Rikishi under a different name. Was it a version of the Wild Samoans? Who was it?
Dude, I couldn't tell you. Did he manage the Samoan SWAT team?
Samoan SWAT. I think you're right. Yeah, but one of Rikishi's former lives before he was Rikishi, Paul was his manager in a tag team. So they have played on that with the Usos and with Roman, the idea that he knows their family so well. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's weird when you have like AJ Styles and actually they don't have that many people that I want to see them wrestle. Chad Gable, like if you just wanted to give like a random so and so a title match for Roman to beat soundly. Like, you could have given that to Gable, because then you get to pretend you did something with him for a month.
Right.
Or one of those guys, Cesaro. Like, I feel like that's what those guys are made for. If you need someone to just beat soundly on a show, that's what like guys at that level are for in WWE. But yeah, I guess Jey Uso, arguably is a more interesting version of that, because even though no one in the world believes he would win, he does have, not only is he related to Roman, but also has history with Paul. So I don't know. I guess that's arguably a slightly more interesting version of the tomato can challenger for the badass world champion.
Sure. So Big E was pretty clearly being built up, and then he was pretty abruptly removed from the title picture. Is it because you think at some point they actually want to give Big E a real shot, or do you think this is case number 8 million of Vince getting cold feet on a guy?
Nearly impossible to say. But I mean, I feel like they have an idea for him, and maybe they just, and yeah, my guess right now is that they just don't want to beat him, but that they also don't really know like what to do with him, because they're not good at this anymore. Like, ideally, he should beat Strowman. Like, if you have the idea that like he's going to wrestle Roman, let's say at the Royal Rumble. Okay, so set up a program now between Big E and Strowman and have Big E win. Isn't that what the big stinky giant is for?
Exactly.
But instead, yeah. Anyway, so I don't think they've given up on him quite yet. My only thing is, and I know Big E has been doing stuff with like The Miz on Talking Smack, and like sort of talking in not so coded language about, people like him having to work twice as hard to get half the chances as other people. And I think that, I don't necessarily think on its face that's bad or wrong. I know as a long-time listener will know, I'm not a big fan of worked shoots. But if you're going to point out that historically black wrestlers do not get the chances that white wrestlers get in WWE, a true fact, that's only a good thing to point out if that is something that you think is actually going to change going forward. Because our biggest example of that not changing is Kofi Kingston getting himself more over than anyone else in the company, save for maybe Becky Lynch. And they intentionally like booked him as a third from the top champion the whole time, and then when it was time for him to lose the belt, he lost it in 8 seconds and never got a rematch, never even got to cut a promo addressing his loss. So if you're gonna change that, then by all means continue to wink at that and poke at that on on Talking Smack or Twitter or wherever you want to do it. But if you don't think it's actually going to change, I would not recommend doing that.
That was why I thought it was so weird when they took Big E out of the match for like the number 1 contender spot, because he had done promos like that. It's like, well, now he really looks like a schmuck,
Yes.
Like, this is really counterproductive if you're actually trying to build this guy up to do something with him, but who knows. Monday Night Raw, they booked a Keith Lee Drew McIntyre main event, and I thought this was like super no-brainer stuff. Keith Lee should have beaten Drew McIntyre. It was a non-title match. Drew's going to go to the pay-per-view and beat Randy Orton anyway. And then you have Drew's next challenger ready-made for him. And, we're supposed to be strapping the rocket to Keith Lee and all this stuff. But they just decided they didn't want to do a finish. And they had Retribution run in. At least, they've kind of figured out who's in Retribution. Finally. Still no real purpose statement issued by that group yet. They just run in only on Raw and create chaos. And generally bad television. So, what'd you did you catch any of Monday Night Raw this week? It was a long show. Did you? And what do you think of kind of what they're doing at the top of the card over there?
Yeah, I caught the entire last hour and then snippets of the rest of the show later on. Yeah, from what I saw, I didn't think anything was bad. It was generally focused around a lot of big wrestling matches. You had your cage match with Walter Mysterio and Seth. You had the Owens and Aleister Black match, and then you set up this kind of show long thing with Keith Lee and Drew, and then it's kind of like midway through the show they added the caveat that I guess they're teasing that Orton won't be able to compete at Clash of Champions. So the other caveat was that if Keith Lee beat him, he would get the title shot in the event Orton couldn't make it.
Correct.
So that, I guess, that added to it. I mean, it kept me tuned in. I mean, based on my having watched more than one episode of Monday Night Raw, I kind of had a guess where the finish was going. But I kind of just assumed Orton would run in. I didn't necessarily expect the group known as Retribution would run in and ruin it, and then the Hurt Business, who I guess they have such strong brand loyalty that they came out to defend the honor of Raw from Retribution, and then. It was a good visual then with Keith Lee and Drew hitting the big man dives on everybody and continuing the stare down. So based on that, though, it's okay to not do a finish now if you're gonna do a finish next week or at the pay-per-view. But I think too often we don't get the finish and then we don't get the follow-up where we're rewarded for not getting the finish.
Right.
So I am not excited to necessarily or really jazzed, feeling like, oh man, I got to tune in to see what happens on Raw next week, because I don't really have confidence that I'll get the ending to what I was enjoying and watching last week.
Do you think Tom Phillips and or Samoa Joe have COVID?
I thought they just took surprise impromptu vacations for fun, like people do.
Yeah,
and then no one talks about where they are.
Right. Yeah, I tuned into Raw, and Dolph Ziggler was on commentary, and after I threw a hissy fit, it's like, I wonder if Joe has COVID. Dolph on commentary, no bueno.
I mean, he's a deeply unlikable person, and he's clearly not good at improv or any sort of comedic timing. So that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I kind of just assumed we're in another round of secret COVID.
Yeah.
I guess the Thunderdome is not COVID proof. They didn't have that magic spray that Hunter has in the Performance Center.
Sure. Couple things that in discussing Raw here came up that I wanted to thank you for jogging my memory about. Mm-hmm. The Hurt Business, by the way, should be a total. Was that a babyface turn at the end of Raw? Because I love the act. I don't love that it's on 14 segments every week.
Yeah, they are all over those shows.
It's really good, man. But I don't want, ice cream is delicious, but I don't want to eat ice cream for every meal. You know what I mean?
Yes. I've often thought of comparing Bob Lashley to ice cream.
Delicious chocolate.
Delicious chocolate, just like... Okay, anyway. No, I enjoy the act, and they're, as usual, if it's one of those things where if they had a crowd, this would be the most overact on the show right now, because they just beat everybody's ass and win all the time.
And MVP cuts great promos.
Right. like last week when Cedric turned, I was like, man, if there were fans there, they'd be going, this would be the loudest ovation Cedric Alexander will ever get, is him turning heel and joining the Hurt Business if there was a crowd for that show. But yeah, I don't know. Like there again, if there's going to be these heavily pushed characters, why not? Why not just make them the good guys?
Sure.
People like tough, cool guys who win all the time.
Yeah, like how they book all their heels.
Right.
So then, also, Kevin Owens beat Aleister Black with a stunner after the lights flickered. Do you think they're smart enough to have maybe put Kevin Owens as like the leader of this Retribution group?
I hadn't thought of that, but now that you mention it, I mean, he hasn't had like anything to do in like a really long time.
Yes.
So you might as well, because at least then there will be like someone that people care about, and it won't be like just Donovan Dijak and Mojo Rawley or whoever.
I would do that. Like, I think they've just decided, look, this guy, we can't rely on him anymore. He got hurt right after Mania. Then his wife's grandfather died of COVID, and he, was really vocal about masks and when they were super against masks. And it's like, I can see them being like not very happy with him, but also trying to find a role for him, kind of like they did with Joe, where it's like physically we just can't count on this guy anymore. His body's too broken down. But as like a mouthpiece, as an Eddie Kingston type for that group, that's how I would use Owens.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fine idea, because obviously the group known as Retribution has some good workers. I mean, they're probably in their mid to late 30s as well, because it's NXT. But yeah, I mean, theoretically, you have people with less miles on their body, and you let Owens be the figurehead of the group for a while. Yeah, I think that would be fine.
I think that would be fine. I also think they haven't thought of that, but
probably not.
But when
Unless
the lights,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. So the lights flickering and leading to him beating Aleister Black is one of two things: either he's in Retribution, or they just found another way to not book a finish.
Yes. I mean, that could even lead, if you wanted to get really creative, that's almost like a double turn thing, right? Where Aleister Black snapped and turned on Owens, and then it turns out it's because he actually knows that he's, or suspects that he's in Retribution. And that's based. Okay, now I'm basically booking where Sting and Kevin Nash knew that Hogan was a heel in TNA 10 years ago. I think that's where I'm getting that idea. Oh, and the Pope knew, because he and Kevin Nash were both sleeping with Brooke Tessmacher. That was that was that storyline. But anyway, yeah, that's my thought process. You could you could go that direction, and you could fix whatever you've done with Aleister Black by saying that he's not crazy. He's actually just been on to Owens this whole time.
Right. Aleister Black's wife, Zelina Vega, who was a great manager and a terrible wrestler, is now the number one contender for Asuka's title. Sure. Like, they have like 80% of the greatest women's wrestlers in the world under contract to them in one form or another. Why do we have to have Zelina Vega wrestle?
Well, I mean, we need, Uncle Paul's Vanity Project needs EO and needs Rhea and all those other girls. Like, they have to be in NXT, because if they aren't, I mean, they might only get 710,000 viewers instead of 730. So that can't happen.
That's really weird to me. And the Asuka Mickie James finish was really weird to me. The ref, I don't even know what happened other than the ref made a bad call. But it's also the ref who has botched finishes before and who also kneed Sasha Banks in the head and gave her a concussion.
Oh, yeah.
He's from Baltimore, by the way.
All right.
So, not a huge fan of that ref. but poor Mickey James. And let's see, Bailey and Sasha, I think, are going to Hell in a Cell, which, the match will be good if they ever pull the trigger on getting to the match.
Sure.
And we mentioned last time we did a show that I did not trust the intentions of whoever decided that we need to put Rey Mysterio's daughter, his 19-year-old daughter, on television.
Uh-huh.
And then it seemed it wasn't super clear because she's not an actress or a seasoned television performer, but they may have teased doing a romance angle with Buddy Murphy and Rey Mysterio's 19-year-old daughter during that cage match between Rey's large adult son and the Monday Night Messiah on Raw. That's another one of those we were right kind of things.
The same Buddy Murphy who Ray's daughter and wife and son beat the crap out of with canes last week.
Yes, they did.
Okay, all right. Well, that is certainly a direction.
I don't trust these people.
No, I think they have poor intentions. I think that's fair to say.
Sure. Wednesday night this week, NXT and AEW. NXT, they're doing TakeOver the first week of October. Balor's going to have a challenger that's going to be decided in a gauntlet match on next week's show. It's going to probably run the length of the show. I don't really know what else to add about NXT because I haven't seen the show yet. And AEW Dynamite had a lot of good wrestling and a lot of to the back.
Yeah, I didn't see much of NXT. It looks like a fine show on paper. Yeah, we'll see. That gauntlet match is, I think it's basically a Royal Rumble, but there are pinfalls.
All right, that's cool.
So it won't be just one guy at a time. It'll be it's like an interval thing where guys come in and then they're eliminated by pin or submission.
Every 4 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good way to eat up some TV time and do some fun stuff. So that could be fun. Yeah, I thought AEW was a solid show. To me, the highlight outside of maybe some of the wrestling was probably the Moxley promo. And big Willie Hobbs. Yeah, that was fun and set up your big 6-man tag. And obviously they're taking their time, but they're building up to this anniversary Dynamite where Moxley will defend the belt, and I'm sure we'll get a bunch of other stuff. I mean, it didn't feel like they were building, like it wasn't like a lot of clear building backs. Like they had like Kenny on commentary for Hangman Page's match, and the Young Bucks are very emo now. Because that's what people want out of the Young Bucks is anger.
Well, a lot of grown men in their 30s in their feelings on AEW Dynamite is the phrase that I'm heavily pushing.
Yes, and Matt Hardy, the man just can't stay healthy for 5 seconds.
No. The thing with Dynamite this week to me was they didn't know whether the show was going to be on Wednesday night or Thursday night because of NBA scheduling or something. So they didn't want to advertise anything big.
I mean, the fact that Chuck Taylor main evented the show would suggest you're right.
Sure. And are you pumped for the big Tuesday night, late night Dynamite next week, where you can see the 10 guy wrestle Evan Bourne and Brandy wrestle Anna Jay on TNT?
Sounds like an exciting episode of AEW Dark. Does not sound like an episode of Dynamite the Dynamite special. That I will. It doesn't sound like something that I will be going out of my way to see. But hey, I'll have it on the DVR. Maybe I'll, throw it on while I'm doing something else or something.
A ringing endorsement. All right. Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss this week?
No, I I think that about covers it. As always, we have covered quite a bit of ground across multiple promotions across the world, and yeah, that's about it.
All right. Good times, everybody. Till next time, I'm Ethan.
And I'm Liam.
We'll be back soon with more stories from the wrestling life.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Now, here are this week's bonus features.
Just the world.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to avoid legal snags by telling you this call is being recorded.
Noted.
All right.
You're already a better lawyer than Matt Riddle's lawyer.
Like Bob Loblaw was a much better lawyer.
Yes, like no one in a comedic television series could write a lawyer. The first thing we learned about this lawyer is that he didn't have any real paper, so he printed out a legal statement on address labels. That was our first exposure to this guy. And now it turns out he might not have put together a good legal case.
Shocking, I tell you.
Wild.
All right. It's just a free-flowing discussion this week. I got no bullet points. We'll just go. And right. I don't have any Fraser Observer Radio this week. So there's a batch of episodes that I've seen like 2 or 3 times already. So
Fraser Observer Radio is a repeat this week.
Yes. Any idea what number show this is? I can. I should. Let me look it up. 246. What did I just say? 246.
That's what you just said. Yes.
By the way, I slept like 1 hour today, yesterday, whatever.
Tight.
Yeah, it's going great. All right.
I try to keep on keeping on.